Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today with the lovely Mary Berkery, an empowerment coach, and she works with individuals and groups and helps them work through and provides tools to help them live from a place of empowerment and sovereignty. And it's a topic that's very close to my heart and one I've spoken about a lot. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I met Mary at an event in Tuam in County Galway earlier in the summer, and I was very taken by her energy, her experience, her words, and I just thought it would be lovely to have a conversation one-on-one. And just in preparation for this conversation, we had a chat and the whole theme of judgment came up. And we thought we might talk about that today. And I might ask Mary just to share her experience working with clients in this area. So I really hope and I believe this will be of great benefit to anyone listening. So Mary, welcome. Delighted to be talking to you from the lovely Westport in Mayo, I believe you're in.
Yes. And it's a beautiful sunny October day today. Yeah.
Lovely, isn't it? And the same here in Galway. So I just love to start the conversation as I said, you know, you work with clients a lot and this theme of judgment. Can you just share with the audience just how this has shown up for you working with clients and just around the self-judgment and maybe judgment of others?
Well, I suppose I could start with the self-judgment, Celine, in that I would have been a very hard taskmaster and very high standards set on myself, and would have grown up in a family where, you know, you had to do it the right way, you know, and the right way was literally beyond the realms of possibility in some ways, particularly. But and, you know, judgment for just being gregarious or judgment for just being outspoken and ridiculed in school. So I internalized quite a lot of, you know, put downs on myself. So it's been my own journey to just be more softer and gentler with myself. And, you know, there's a wonderful body work called Traeger, and it just rocks a body and it just says, what's softer than this? That's the question he keeps asking over and over again. So, yeah, I'm just following my hunches, and even if I get them wrong, you know, I realize, oh, I need just in a sense, just dust myself down and pick up the pieces and just get back in my flow again, you know. So, and then that's with me. So it's been my own personal journey, and realizing that when I start that kind of self-criticism, like there's a difference between, you know, as in I grew up where you examine your conscience, you know, where you look at, oh, I could have done that better, or I could have been more aware in that conversation. That's different. That's coming from a place of self-inquiry and wanting to grow and mature and develop. But when it comes from where you literally take out the whip and start calling yourself names, even, which I have been well able to do, then you're moving into this area of self-criticism and that kind of hard taskmaster kind of judgment. And it has a paralyzing effect, you know, and it literally gets you in under a duvet for a day or something, and you don't want to face the world and you feel you're a horrible person. What I find, your question was about clients. So often I work as a life coach, and I also work with horses. Horses are the most non-judgmental creatures in the whole world. They will suss you out, but they don't judge you for who you are. And I work a lot with youth and young adults as well. And what I find is that this type of sort of, I call negative judging, you know, it's a form of second guessing. They get an idea about doing something, or they want to do something. They want to apply for this job or apply for this training, or, you know, go to that party or go to that networking event. And immediately on its tails comes, oh, no, I'm too fat. I wouldn't know what to say. I'm not qualified enough. I haven't got enough experience. And they allow that voice to totally cripple this, in a sense, creative idea or this instinct or this impulse. And I've done it even with Zoom talks or whatever, you know, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And then you realize not ready. There's no arrival. There's no tomorrow. Tomorrow is always tomorrow. So so I find it's like this critic that sits on the shoulder. Literally, you're damned if you do, and then you're damned if you don't, you know. And it just wants to, I don't know where it comes from. It's some kind of familiarity. It's like it creates this kind of comfort zone of not living your life fully in the way you want to live it. And I come across it a lot with clients, and I've kind of found tools now to help them get over it, but it's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate as well, Mary. I mean, that voice, every time I think I have it, not beaten, but, you know, I've sort of moved past it. It shows up in a different way. And my experience, and I'd love to hear what you found in working with clients, and obviously then we'll talk about the tools that you use, is that even recently I had that happen, and I could trace the voice back to a voice that I heard as a child, like you spoke about. So I get the sense that it's coming from maybe old traumas or conditioning, ancestral patterns, family. Like, we can't always trace maybe the exact moment, but even the knowledge that it isn't, what's the word, let's say, relevant even today, whether it was relevant ever. Does that sort of resonate with you, or have you found that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are, you know, we are made out of love. You know, we're made from love. We are birthed out of love, in a sense of, and I don't necessarily mean the biological birth. We come from this intelligent love intelligence that has birthed everything. But what happens along the way is we collect stuff, and as you said, we even come in with some even ancestral tendencies, you know, of it could be an ancestral tendency of shyness, false kind of shyness. It could be an ancestral tendency of snobbery, you know, and that excludes you from other people. You know, it could be an ancestral tendency of never being good enough. You know, they're both sort of the other side of the same coin, you know. And then we pick up stuff in, you're only good if you know, make your bed, or you're only good if you get top points in school, or, you know, and that's where we get rewards for being good, nice people, you know. And then we collect these, in a sense, strategies of behavior to get the love that's already inside us, actually. And so it's like an onion. It's like the journey is to peel all this back, to come back to, in a sense, the diamond that's already in there in the first place, you know. And it's suddenly to see, I mean, I remember when I was living in Dublin, walking down Dunleary Pier and feeling something coming off my shoulders, off in between my shoulder blades, and I knew it was the perfectionist of the Berkery line that was starting to loosen in me. Had a conversation, I think, the day before about my ancestors or something, and I could feel this kind of hardness, in a sense, lifting off of me, physically lifting off of me. And as I did, I just said, I release it for healing, back however many generations it has come. And it doesn't happen overnight, you know, but it's that constant sort of awareness and a constant, in a sense, connecting to who I really am, and say, I ask for anything less than that to fall away.
Lovely.
Anything to show up in my life that will help me, will help that fall away. And it could be the next intimate relationship, or your child, or your sister, or, you know, or somebody. It's usually the person who presses your buttons is the one that have to shake off some of this garbage, you know, that you carry, you know. So
isn't that what it's often, I say that myself as well, isn't it, that often our triggers are our greatest teachers. You know, but I like what you say there as well, and maybe you might talk a little bit about this as well, the difference between maybe judgment and discernment, because I often look at it as separating the person from the behavior. I've heard someone else say that. So, you know, there may be situations where yes, we are going into judgment and it's around something that needs to heal in ourselves, but there may also be situations where maybe this isn't okay with us and we have to be able to decipher that. So could you talk a little bit about that,
I
please?
think my measuring rod, Celine, is, if I'm deciding not to do something, it just doesn't feel right. First of all, I'll check with my body.
Mm-hmm.
Find my body holds a lot of wisdom. If there's tension in my body, if I have a couple of little ways, sometimes I feel like there are hands in front of my heart like this,
Still there.
and
Yeah, you're come back, sorry.
I just know I can't, this isn't right for me to go into this situation. But as long as I stay with myself, I just I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable about this. But as soon as I start bashing the other party or the other group or the other, they're full of their own ego, or I don't like them, or they don't like me, or whatever story I create in my head about them, and I'm using what I call you statements or they statements and not I statements, then I'm gone into judgment, and I'm gone into sort of the mind, and I'm gone into limiting, for as long as I can say, look, this isn't good, I'm not comfortable to do this, and I wish you well, whoever you are. I'm not comfortable joining this group, or I'm not comfortable attending this, or I'm not comfortable going to that bar tonight. Have a great evening.
Yeah. And that sounds so empowering when I listen to you there, isn't it amazing? Even sometimes the simplicity of just even that, like you talked about the body, I just get the sense, and it's been a journey myself, is that taking that time and coming into the body and listening and softening. And often we don't want to do that because we sometimes have to face something maybe that's something painful from our past or something it's bringing up. Isn't that sort of, as you said, it's really about coming back into ourselves? I think that's wonderful advice for anyone listening, and wonderful wisdom. The minute we go into the you or they.
They're just I statements.
I statements, yeah. Yeah, that's lovely.
And even in an intimate relationship, when you get into criticizing the other person, or a close relationship, you've gone down the tubes in a sense, rather way, hey, this conversation isn't good for me, I'm taking a walk. You're back to me, and owning my own reaction to whatever is going on, so. And another, you were asking there earlier about tools, Celine. Find with my clients is, if they start this, I can't do this, and I'm not good enough, I'm overqualified, I'm underqualified, whatever it is. What I am inclined to do is sit with the judge, in a sense, don't kind of push it to one side. Say, okay, come over, what are you really saying? Like I had a client who, she was a young girl, 18, looking for work, and and she lives out in the country, and I had said, would you consider Westport? No, I don't like Westport. I don't like the people in Westport. And I said, why you don't like what? But actually, when we really kind of opened it up, said, well, who is this voice? Who doesn't like the people? It was that person who, she thought she was overweight. She didn't think she was pretty enough. She thought Westport was a really cool place to be, and she wasn't cool enough. So it was her own insecurities coming out. So when she kind of faced, who in you doesn't like Westport? What in you doesn't like Westport? Why are you putting barriers to? We teased it without judging the judge, in a sense. Just being curious. Why? What's going on? And I'm inclined to do that with for myself, I use journaling with that. Who are you? What's your name? Why don't you like this? Why don't you like this person?
Yes.
Also, another tool would be to turn it around. If you are very judgmental of someone, oh no, they're just immature, or they're just childish, or then where am I immature? Where do I need to mature? Where do I need to grow up? In a sense, I think it says in the Bible, take the beam out of your own eye before you take the speck out of your brother's. The idea of just turn it around, because the only person that's on this journey with you is you. You know, that's the only person that you have the power over and the sovereignty over. You know, the more you just stay with your own process, you know. And there was a beautiful story of a teacher that I followed once. Her husband was having affairs, you know, and she, being a spiritual teacher, was, you know, oh, I may need to overcome this and get over it. And, you know, love is much bigger than all this. Anyway, she eventually came to the point that, you know, this is unacceptable to her. But rather than calling him a bastard and a this and a that, she just said, hey there, I can't do this anymore. You do whatever you need to do with your life, but this is not my scene. You know, but she didn't.
Sorry,
she wasn't angry with him. She was, and he ended up saying, she brought me to my knees.
He ended up,
wow. It was the power of just owning what was right for her without judging his behavior. This marriage is over. I can't do it. You know.
Yeah, but isn't that so empowering? I think for anyone listening, like it took me so long, and it's to learn this, that this is the key to sovereignty, like how we started this conversation about living from a place of empowerment and sovereignty. You're not, I sort of see it as, you're not as blown, you're not, you know, you're a solid tree sort of planted deeply, rather than sort of being blowing with whatever is happening and going with it. It's a very, and would you see, Mary, that, you know, you talk about work with horses and grounding and body work. I found that really helpful for myself. Is that something that you also, I suppose, encourage people in terms of getting into that place within themselves, being able to sit with the judge, as you said? What sort of tools are the things that you would advise people?
Well, I mean, I think nature, excuse me, I have little dogs here who make lots of noise, and somebody has just arrived and they have to acknowledge that they have just arrived. So, yeah, I think horses, they don't judge, you see, and they're in the present moment. They're totally in the present moment. They can discern, they pick up your fear or your fright or your whatever, but they don't judge. Like, you can come in designer gear or designer car, or you can arrive in a bicycle, and then there's no prejudice in them. They're just present to who is showing up from a heart level, you know, and they meet you on that level, you know. And in some level, and in some ways, nature has that same, you know, inclusive presence. You know, the sun, as I said, shines on the good and the bad, you know, in a sense, you know. Anybody, a saint or a sinner, can sit under a tree. You know, there isn't that sort of exclusivity. There is that inclusiveness. And that's one thing. But another thing about the horses is that they are very much in their bodies. You know, they've got 4 hooves on the ground. I call them 4 suckers on the ground. They're like big saucers, you know, and they feel with their bodies, and they let it, you know, if they get frightened, they feel it and it just goes through them. They don't second guess themselves and say, you shouldn't be thinking like this, or you shouldn't be feeling like this. They just, and they're well able to reprimand each other. They're not kind of sugary, nice. They're well able to tell another horse, back off, you know. So they, you know, from that point of view, they, you know, they're mirrors. They show us how to be. They show us, in a sense, how to live in community. You know, where they're very clear with their boundaries. With humans, if they're allowed to be clear with their boundaries with humans, but they're definitely very clear with their boundaries with each other. Yeah. So, and I find, back to me, you know, what I did in the past was, I'd feel uncomfortable with something, and I'd say, oh, for goodness sake, get over yourself. And I'd kind of muscle through, you know. But now, because horses, in a sense, have taught me more to live more embodied, if I'm just uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable. I'm not apologizing about it anymore. Because judgment goes in every direction. Judgment goes towards self or the other. It flips. It's like a seesaw. If I'm either doing it to, oh, for goodness sake, get over yourself and apply for that job, or get over yourself and pick up that phone and talk to that person even though you don't like them, or whatever. Whereas my body says, hey there, no, just allow space here, take your time, slow it down. So
that sounds, sorry, Mayor, gosh, that's fascinating about the horses. And what comes to me when you say that as a human life is that it sounds like when you describe the horses there, they're very tuned into their true nature, you
yeah,
know, who they are, that connection with the greater universe, and intelligence that's flowing through them. And it strikes me, or my experience has been, that we have been really conditioned not to trust that. And really, the journey is coming back, isn't it, into that truth within ourselves. So, as you said, if you don't feel comfortable in whatever it is, going to somewhere that doesn't feel right, it's that discernment, that knowing it's okay, it's not for me, is that
absolutely.
step,
Yeah.
and empowering step into sovereignty.
And if you actually look into it, it is because, you know, if you look at your childhood, oh, for goodness sake, you know, little boys don't cry, or, you know, the conditioning, you know, not to be in touch with yourself, you know, and, you know, and, you know, or like I was listening, some, you know, girls don't talk loud, you know, that kind, you know, all that condition that we have collected, the dust that stops us shining our full beauty out into the world. We've accumulated through, you know, messages we've received from our family, from our schools, from our, very often as well, I have to say, from our religious systems.
Yeah.
You know, even our medical systems. You're just given a tablet for something.
Yeah.
You're allowed, but where is this pain coming from, and what's actually really happening?
And getting back to the root cause, isn't it? Really treating the cause, not the symptom.
That's your journey, Celine, your empowering journey.
Yeah. And it has been. Sometimes, don't we? We have to, I know from experience, I wouldn't change one moment of my experience with cancer, because I couldn't have learned what I have learned. And I couldn't have got the amazing gifts, which, like you said, it to me, I heard someone else talk about, it's like taking off all these layers of heavy coats and coming back into that diamond and that connection with ourselves, and letting go of all of that condition and trusting our body. I suppose if we're coming towards the end of our conversation here, so I'm going to ask you just to share a few. Pardon?
It's so much we could talk about here.
Yeah, and we'll come back again and we'll pick up on some other topics, but I think this has been so useful for me. I think so useful for the audience, and it's wonderful to have this conversation, because I think it's a journey that so many people are on today, and hopefully will find this empowering. I'm absolutely sure they will. So are there any parting words, Mary, you'd like to leave with the audience, and maybe how they can make contact with you if they wish to do so, and the type of work you're doing?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I run retreats, residential retreats. I do fireside chats with teenagers around the full moon every month. And I do one-to-one sessions online and in person. And I think the best way to contact me is my website, which is maryberkery.com, M-A-R-Y, and my surname is Berkery, B-E-R-K-E-R-Y, maryberkery.com. And my parting words, well, I have a quote here that I've scribbled down yesterday, and it's from Rumi. If I love myself, I love you. If I love you, I love myself. And it's just that, I feel even emotional by, you know, it's that sense that we're so interconnected, you know, we are really brothers and sisters, you know, and if I point a finger at you, I'm actually pointing a finger at myself. You know, if I send you love, I'm sending myself love. You know, it doesn't mean I even need to be talking to you. You know, it might be somebody that is no longer in my life for a number of reasons. You know, and I may not need them in my life, but I still send them love. So if I love myself, I love you. If I love you, I love myself. We are totally interconnected. We are one human family. There is no other. There is no other. There's no you and me. There's us, you know. And it's when, you know, I think Jesus said it, No, don't judge. What did he say? Don't judge, or you will not be judged. You know, don't judge, or you will not be judged. So when you judge, it'll come back. You're not growing. You're just keeping yourself limited. You know, the judger is actually limiting themselves. You know, that in a sense, you know. So that's more than one part in words, Celine, but
Mary, it's been a joy having another conversation again soon. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for watching. Take care.